Hey everyone, it's William here with the next episode of the Grand Duke Dmitri YouTube Diary series. We are in February 1940. In fact, today we're going to finish up with February 1940. Just FYI, yesterday I did one of my occasional literature videos talking about three books, all Russian: The Brothers Karamazov, Anna Karenina, and The Master and Margarita. So take a look at that if those books interest you. And now our recap from the previous episode. Well, we did what did we do? The 28th of February, and we talked about Sumner Welles, who was the American Undersecretary of State. Oh, this always happens as soon as I start a video. And before that, he was quiet. Duke! So Sumner Welles came to Europe, according to Dmitri, to rebuke the various countries that they should come to their senses and stop stop pursuing the war. And Dmitri's cynical response to that, which was naturally nothing will come of it, and of course nothing did come of it. And then he talked about Finland in the diary entry of the 27th and how the Scandinavian countries had decided to help, but not by sending troops. And actually they did send troops, but they didn't officially send troops. Officially, they not only didn't send troops, but they wouldn't allow Britain to send an expeditionary force or send supplies that crossed their territory. But what they did send were lots of volunteers, or rather, I should say, lots of volunteers went to Finland to help. But things were going badly, and in fact, it would end pretty soon. Anyway, that's the recap. And as far as Dmitri himself was concerned, he was feeling well. He was doing fine. So we are doing just one diary entry today because it needs a lot of unpacking. And that diary entry is the 29th of February, 1940, which was a Wednesday. And here it goes. Saw Dr. Holdner in the morning, but he didn't say anything. Morning and evening on my balcony. Very alarming rumors about a supposed Anglo-French operation to send troops against the Southern Caucasus and Baku. The whole Dunsterville affair again. Okay, so, yeah, it surprises me a little, not that he was on the balcony in the morning, because when the sun is out in Davos, it's hot. It doesn't matter how much snow there is on the ground or whether you're in the depth of winter. It's hot. But it does surprise me that he's sitting out on his balcony on a winter evening. He must have really been wrapped up, because once the sun goes down, it's cold. I don't sit out. When I'm there in the winter, I don't sit out on the balcony in the evening. And of course, the sun goes down around 5 o'clock. So anyway, that's just an observation on the part of someone who is very familiar with balconies in Davos. Okay, the interesting things that I want to talk about after I fill you in as best I can on the things that Dmitri is referring to with respect to military action, the things to note that make this relevant to Dmitri himself are his comment that seems very, I don't know, not very interesting, but it is. The rumors are very alarming, he says. And the other thing that's noteworthy is that he's drawing upon his own personal experiences in Persia and Mesopotamia in 1917 and 1918. And they had a big impact on him, and so not surprising that he refers to those here. So, okay, as usual, when confronted with something like this, rather than spending lots of time doing research, I follow the modern 21st century path of turning to AI and asking. So I excerpted the part of this diary entry that talks about specifically these war-related things, and asked AI to comment. And so here's what I got: the core truth behind the rumors. So one of the questions I asked were these just rumors, or was there something behind it? And so these rumors about an Anglo-French operation to send troops to Baku. And here's what I got: the core truth behind the rumors. In late 1939 and early 1940, Britain and France viewed the USSR as a de facto ally of Nazi Germany due to the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact and the Soviet invasion of Finland. Under their economic agreements, the Soviet Union was actively supplying Germany with roughly 900,000 tons of oil per year to fuel Hitler's war machine. Allied planners realized that Baku and the wider Southern Caucasus region produced over 80% of the Soviet Union's oil. They calculated that striking this single bottleneck would simultaneously collapse the Soviet economy and starve Nazi Germany of fuel. So that is a very strong motivation to really just preemptively go in and try to take Baku. All right. Then we go on to the question of ground troops versus allies, because Dmitri says specifically an operation to send troops against the Southern Caucasus and Baku. So AI says where the author's diary entry was slightly off was the rumor of sending ground troops against the Southern Caucasus. The actual military plan devised by British Air Commodore John Slessor was an intense strategic bombing campaign, not a ground invasion. All right, so the rumors Dmitri heard got that wrong, and that makes sense because, boy, how on earth, I guess they would send, could they have sent troops up through Persia to Baku? That would have been the obvious way, but I don't know what the situation was in Persia with Great Britain at that time. Okay, so the reconnaissance, the timing in the diary entry is eerily exact. Throughout March and April 1940, the British Royal Air Force actually flew secret unmarked spy planes directly over Baku and Batumi to take high-altitude photographs of the oil refineries to map out bombing targets. Okay, that's interesting. Where were they taking off from? Why the operation was canceled. Well, here we go beyond what Dmitri knew. So Dmitri had heard these rumors. And one of the things I asked AI was, is it surprising that he heard these rumors? Because this was called Operation Pike, and it was supposed to be and needed to be top secret. But Dmitri was aware of it, even though he got some of the details wrong. Did he have inside information? Well, the AI said no, that wouldn't have been necessary, that there were very widespread rumors, that people had gotten wind of it, and that was one of the reasons why it was ultimately aborted. So why the operation was canceled, it was fully mapped out, scheduled to begin as early as May 1940, but then two things happened. One was the Blitzkrieg and the fall of France, which started, I believe, on the 10th of May, and the second was that this was no longer top secret. Word had gotten out. But maybe not from the rumors. Actually, what AI said is that when France fell in June 1940, German troops captured the top secret French military files detailing Operation Pike, and Germany promptly leaked them to Joseph Stalin. This deeply alarmed the Soviet leadership and explains why Stalin remained intensely paranoid of the Western Allies, even after they became partners against Hitler in 1941. Okay, that doesn't have anything to Dmitri, but it's interesting, isn't it? So there were widespread rumors. It's not surprising that Dmitri had heard the rumors, according to AI, but AI also says that the exposure actually was not these rumors, but the capture of top secret French military files. Okay. I do try to look at sources when I look at AI and make sure I'm not putting anything in from, Reddit's What If or anything like that. Okay, so here's why I'm so interested in this very simple expression, very alarming rumors. Because, Dmitri had shifted from saying, I'm a patriot of Russia to I'm a patriot of Europe. And he was very much on the side of the Finns. And yet, when it comes to this operation in the Caucasus and Baku, well, that's something different. You don't want you don't want other countries, England, France, or whoever, going into Russia, going into the Soviet Union. He and other emigres, some other emigres, were very sensitive to that. Finland is one thing, but you don't, where the Soviets are attacking, but you don't go into this, Russia and Russian territory. It also could have had dire consequences for people in Russia if the Baku oil fields had been taken over. It could have started a chain reaction of people not having fuel, and even in some cases, well, it would have disrupted everything. And so, let's give him the benefit of the doubt that there were some real concerns about how this would affect Russia. The other thing is, I should qualify what I said before and say that there were, of course, this right-wing emigre element that were quite happy for the Germans to go into the Soviet Union and topple the Soviet government, and they weren't, looking ahead and worrying apparently about maybe that the Germans would then stay and set up a puppet government, that the Nazis would stay. But in Dmitri's case, and in the case of especially the Russian emigres in France, this was a horrifying thought. So it's not surprising at all that he was very alarmed by these rumors. Okay, turning from that to his associations with 1917-1918 Mesopotamia, he refers to the whole Dunsterville affair again. And if we do the 1918 diaries sometime soon, then you will meet Lionel Dunsterville, who was a kind of, in his own way, I mean, not in the same capacity, but in his own way, kind of this colorful, almost Lawrence of Arabia kind of figure. Although as a general, as a leader, not as, what Lawrence was, what he was doing in Arabia. But yeah, that kind of person with that kind of recognition. And unlike Lawrence of Arabia, Lionel Dunsterville is not really remembered, except among World War I aficionados, and his body of troops was called Dunster Force. And Dmitri had a chance to meet Dunsterville personally when he was in Baghdad, or was it in Egypt? Dmitri was in Baghdad and in Egypt. Pretty sure it was in Baghdad. Yeah, I was in Baghdad where he met Dunsterville and had and really enjoyed meeting him. Dunster Force in 1918, following the collapse, this is from Wikipedia, following the collapse of the Russian Empire in 1917, a power vacuum emerged in the Caucasus. Major General Lionel Dunsterville led an elite multinational unit to northern Persia and Azerbaijan. The objective was to deny the Central Powers, mainly the Ottoman Empire and Germany, access to Baku's petroleum and prevent an invasion toward India. Dunster Force successfully reached Baku in August 1918, but was plagued by local political instability and a lack of heavy equipment. Outnumbered by the Ottoman army outnumbered by the Ottoman army, the force executed a fighting withdrawal and evacuated across the Caspian Sea. In September 1918, despite its tactical withdrawal, it delayed the Central Powers from securing functioning oil assets until the closing weeks of World War I. And let's see, Dmitri left Tehran in August. So probably that would explain how he ended up being in Baghdad around the same time as Dunsterville. Too bad he never met Lawrence of Arabia, but he did meet Gertrude. What was her last name? No, I can't remember her last name. Bell, Gertrude Bell, who was a close associate of Lawrence's and another one of these very colorful, eccentric kind of individuals that Britain produced during this era. And it was fascinating what, boy, they did not get along in their encounters, Dmitri and Gertrude Bell. But anyway, that brings us to the question of what we're going to do next time, because we're at a fork in the road, so to speak. Not necessarily, but we can continue with the Schatzalp diary entries, or we can go back and do 1918. And really, both of those are easily available. So if any of you have a strong opinion about that one way or another, I'm really open. So yeah, just let me know. Otherwise, I'm not even sure whether in the next installment will be in 1918 or 1940. So either way, I hope to see you next time. Bye.